have a story about who you are. It's been written by your experiences, by your family, by your failures and your wins, by the people who believed in you and the people who didn't, by the moments that shaped you, the lessons you learned, the conclusions you drew about yourself. But here's the thing. You're not just reading that story. You're not just living it out like it's already been written. You're actively rewriting it every single day. Are you doing it consciously? Or are you doing it non-consciously and claiming, that's just the way I am? The latter is part of the story you've been accepting non-consciously, by the way. That's what we're exploring today. And this is where you can start revising and writing a new story of you. Hey there, it's me, Core, and you're listening to Exercising Self-Control from Fitness to Flourishing. There's a psychologist named Dan McAdams who's been studying how people construct their sense of self since the 1980s. He proposes something fascinating. We don't just have a personality. We don't just have traits. We have a narrative identity. It's the internalized story you've invented to explain how you became who you are. It's the story you tell yourself about your life. It's the narrative that connects your past to your present, to your future. And here's what's important. This isn't just psychology. This is how your brain actually works. Your brain doesn't just record what happens to you like a video camera. It interprets what's happening. It creates meaning. It connects dots. And it tells a story about what it all means. You're not just an actor responding to events. You are an author of your own story. This is a profound realization and opportunity. Most people think their story is fixed. They think, this is who I am. This is what happened to me. This is my life. And they live as if that story is unchangeable. But it's not. It's being rewritten constantly. Whether you are conscious of that or not makes all the difference. Here's how we can think about this. Your brain is constantly working in the background. You're not consciously aware of all the brain is doing. Most of it is happening non-consciously. Something happens and your senses register the event. As a result, you have an experience. Your brain immediately starts interpreting all the sensory input. It fills in gaps. It creates meaning. It connects it to other experiences. It draws conclusions. It makes predictions. It even interprets what you're feeling as a result of the physiological responses to its own interpretation in a recursive feedback loop. Here's an example. Let's say you start a new exercise routine. You commit to it. You show up for a week, maybe 2 weeks. And then, one day, you miss a workout. Life gets in the way. You're tired. Something comes up. No big deal, right? Well, it depends. Your brain doesn't just record the fact you missed a workout. It interprets it. One person's brain tells the story, I missed a workout. I can't stick with anything. I don't have the discipline. I'm going to fail at this like I've failed at everything else. Another person's brain tells a different story. I missed one workout. Life happens. I'm getting back to it tomorrow. I'm building an exercise practice, and learning to adapt to bumps along the way is part of the process. Same event, different narratives. And each narrative creates a different experience of essentially the same circumstance. The first person goes home discouraged. They ruminate. They lose motivation. They skip the next workout too, because they've already decided they're not the kind of person who sticks with things. The second person goes home, accepts it, and shows up the next day. They keep building. They develop consistency over time. They become someone who follows through. The narrative shaped their experience. The narrative shaped their actions. The narrative shaped who they became. And in each individual case, that narrative becomes self-fulfilling. And here's the key. This is the internal version of what we talked about in part 2. Remember those external narratives? The news stories? The things other people tell you? This is the same principle, but it's happening inside your own mind. Your brain is the storyteller, and you are the one who can examine it. This is where the cool story bro practice goes deepest. In part 1, we talked about Epictetus and the idea of pausing to examine your impressions. And we've been talking about applying that to external narratives. But this is where it really matters. This is where the most important work happens. Put the effort into your internal experience, and everything in your life will change. When you become aware of the narrative your brain is constructing, that is, when you notice the story it's telling you about yourself, you, the choosing self, assert the power to redirect your attention toward the person you prefer to be, not the person you've been conditioned to be. You can ask, is this story actually true? Or is it just a narrative I've accepted? Is it true that I can't stick with anything? Or did I have one experience where I missed a workout and my brain created a story around that? Is it true that my past determines my future? Or is that a narrative I inherited from my family and I've just been going along with their thinking? Is it true that I'm not capable of change? Or is that a story I'm telling myself that's keeping me stuck? When you start asking these questions, you realize something. You realize that you're not trapped by what's happened in the past, or by your circumstances, or by who you thought you were. You're trapped by a story. It's a story you keep telling yourself about what's true. However, you've got to keep in mind, every story has a perspective baked in. There may be facts, there may be truth in the story, but there's always a perspective, an interpretation of those facts. And stories can be rewritten. They can be reinterpreted. This is what's called metacognition. That is, thinking about your thinking. It's becoming aware of the narrative your brain is constructing. It's examining it. It's deciding, do I want to keep telling this story, or do I want to tell a different one? When you do that, when you become conscious about your internal narrative, your perspective changes. You stop being a victim of your circumstances. You become the author of your life. That's how virtuous self-control is strengthened. Not by focusing on the external events outside your direct control, but by consciously authoring your internal narrative. This is your ultimate power. Do this well, and you'll better influence the external events. Small shifts in how you tell your story create massive changes in how you experience your life. Small shifts in the narrative you accept about yourself create massive changes in who you become. This is the essential takeaway. You are a storyteller. You are telling stories about the world, you're telling stories about other people, and most importantly, you're telling stories about yourself. Are you telling them consciously, or are you letting your brain tell them on autopilot? Because if you're not conscious about the narratives you're accepting about yourself, they're shaping your life in ways you wouldn't choose if you were paying attention. They're determining what you try. They're determining what you believe is possible. They're determining who you become. But if you pause, if you examine, if you ask, is this really true? Is this the story I want to believe about myself? You get your power back. That initial pause to examine your impression seems like such an insignificant moment, but it leads to a massive payoff. Freedom. Not freedom from your circumstances, at least not in that exact moment, but freedom from the stories and the perspectives that have been limiting you. Freedom to consciously choose who you become. With those changes, you can make different choices and take different actions on your circumstances because you're seeing them differently. As Marcel Proust, the French novelist, said, begin quote, "The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes." End quote. Here's what you can do. Notice one story you tell yourself regularly. It could be about your abilities. It could be about your worth. It could be about your future or your past. It might be something like, I'm not creative, or I'm not good with people, or I always fail at this, or I'm not the kind of person who does that. Just notice, become aware of it. Then ask yourself, is this story actually true? Or is it just a narrative I've accepted? You don't have to change it today. You don't have to rewrite it. You don't have to do anything with it yet. Just notice it. Just become aware that it's a story, a perspective, a conclusion you've made. But it doesn't mean it's the end of the story. There's space for another story to be written. That's the practice. Develop that awareness of story in your life. Awareness is the first step in making any change. So, here's what we've explored over these 3 episodes. In part 1, we talked about the foundation. Narratives shape your experience, and you have the power to choose which ones you accept. In part 2, we talked about the external narratives, the stories coming at you from the news, from social media, from other people, and how to examine them instead of just absorbing them. And today, we've talked about the deepest level, the narratives you tell yourself, the stories your brain is constructing about who you are, what you're capable of, what's possible for you. All 3 operate on the same principle. All 3 come down to the same practice. Pause. Examine. Choose. I'll say it again. The cool story, bro, principle isn't about being skeptical or cynical. It's not about distrusting everything. It's about conscious choice. It's about pausing and deciding, is this the story I want to believe? Is this the story I want to live? Because you are a storyteller, and the most important story you'll ever tell is the story about yourself. That's it for today. Catch you next time.